How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. Week 13 is in the books, and we are going to recap it right here on this stream. I'm Al Zeidenfeld, aka Al Smizzle. If you've seen me on daily fantasy sites before, you kind of know who I am. Or if you've been a subscriber to this YouTube channel, thank you very much for the continued support. Let's see if we can get 500 likes on this video before the week expires. So let's see if we can get to that point. We're going to break down my Best Buys article. We're going to see what I got right, what I got wrong, where we were lucky, where we were unlucky, and see how we can possibly learn to do better as the weeks go on. And then we're going to take a look at my main lineup. This is championship season. I didn't play any head-to-heads this week. I did enter one 50-50. I cashed that one. It was the $250 single entry on DraftKings. Was the only cash game that I entered. We'll look at my lineup that was in the 4-man and in the King of the Beach tournament on DraftKings. Let's get right to the breakdown. Let's go over and check out the Best Buys article. Here you can see it. We go position by position on this one. We started with quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers, 7K, 20.6 points. Did just fine for you. 31 of 43, 334 yards. Got you the bonus and 1 touchdown. So he did good against Cleveland. With Cleveland keeping the game close, Rivers was able to really take advantage of Keenan Allen a whole lot more than we thought he would. Able to take advantage of Hunter Henry for a lot longer than we thought he would. Both of them smashed as well, or did well enough. One smashed, one did well enough for you. Josh McCown was the complete hit on the week. He went bonkers on the back of 2 rushing touchdowns. Went 26 of 36 for 331 yards and 1 touchdown, and those 2 on the ground that we talked about. 34.14 DraftKings points for him in week 13. So absolutely fabulous week if you played Josh McCown. Blake Bortles also at 5,400, 28.1 points, 300 yards, 309 yards. So all 3 of the quarterbacks got the 300-yard bonus this week. That's a win. 26 of 35 on the day, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's had 2 really good games against Indy. Jared Goff, 16 points. Hundley was the bust of the day and was very disappointing considering how much that team total had moved up throughout the week. Over 2.5 points. Their implied total climbed, and it forced a lot of people onto Hundley. And we'll see that my main lineup, I went with Hundley as well to go with a more correlated approach. I'll talk about that when we get to the lineup review part. Only scored 8.96 points, 13 of 22, 84 yards passing, completely horrible. The roller coaster season for him continues. 1 interception, no touchdowns on the ground or passing. Kind of salvaged his day a little bit with 66 rushing yards. Got vultured on the last play of the game as Aaron Jones came in one of his 2 touches on the day and scored a 20-yard touchdown. Leonard Fournette, 16.9 points, 20 of 57, 3 of 4 targets were turned into catches for 22 yards and a touchdown. 16.9, not terrible at the price. Not exactly, he didn't have 25 or 30 points. Wasn't going to win you a GPP, but he wasn't going to hurt you in cash games either, which is as much of a win as anything else, especially considering Dion Lewis fell down 2 times inside the 5-yard line, once on the 1-yard line, seeded for Rex Burkhead, who scored 2 touchdowns on the day, and we're left with 15 carries for 92 yards. Played very well, 6.1 yards per carry for Dion Lewis, but he fell down twice, giving him 9.2 points, and therefore is viewed as a bust. If he happens to fall into the end zone instead of falling on the 1-yard line once or twice, we're talking about 15 fantasy points, which people would have said, oh yeah, Dion Lewis did just fine. Or if he scores twice, oh wow, 21 points for Dion Lewis. He was an absolute crusher this week, and somebody that I'm really happy to have had. So we got a little bit unlucky here, but we know that Burkhead's going to be the goal line guy. We got unlucky that Lewis fell on the 1 is really where we got, or fell on the 1 and fell inside the 5 2 different times. But obviously the process, we know that Burkhead's going to be the short yardage guy like Gillislee was earlier in the year. And in addition to that, the way that Blunt was used last year. So we need him to score if he's going to play. Jamal Williams, we came off of him a little bit with Aaron Jones being healthy. We wanted both him and Montgomery to be out this week. Aaron Jones came back. I came down off of my touch projection, which if you guys were watching the Anti-Tinkercast, you know that the touch that we were expecting was about 22 to 25 for Jamal Williams. On the Anti-Tinkercast, I said, okay, with Aaron Jones there, if he sees 5 to 8 touches in this game, I'm going to come down to maybe 17 to 21. I still think he's a good play, but I don't want to have 60% of him. Turns out that I probably should have stayed at my 60% allocation to him because he still had 23 touches on the day, by the way of 21 carries and 2 catches on 3 targets, 113 yards rushing, got you the bonus there, 10 receiving yards and a touchdown, 23.3 fantasy points, absolute smash at that position. Todd Gurley, 21.8. Carlos Hyde, this was a bust here, especially considering how many passing yards Jimmy Garoppolo ended the day with. 9.6 points, got 5 targets. We thought he'd get 6 or 7, caught 3 of those balls, 17 rushes for 54 yards. Had more opportunity inside the 5 and inside the 10, but could not get his body into the end zone. Ended the day with 9.6 points, kind of a bust there. Keenan Allen, are we just expecting 10 catches and 100 yards from Keenan Allen every week? Because that's all he's done for the last 3 weeks. 10 catches, 14 targets, 105 yards and a touchdown, 29.5 fantasy points. Worth paying up for Keenan Allen, one of the best plays on the day. DeAndre Hopkins, we knew we'd get, between 12 and 15 targets. We knew that they weren't going to be super efficient. He did catch 8 of those 14 targets that he got for 80 yards and no touchdowns. Did get a bunch of red zone targets, about 3 or 4 of them. I forget. I didn't count and I didn't check it to look back exactly how many he got. He got a couple of end zone targets. One of them he dropped the ball or was well defended. Another one he came down out of bounds. 16 fantasy points. Didn't hurt. Solid. Anytime you can book 16 points from somebody who's going to get or has a higher salary, you're paying for that floor. He got you that 16 fantasy points there. Devontae Adams, kind of a bust at 6.5K. Ended the day with 8.2 fantasy points, 4 catches on 6 targets, 42 yards, no touchdown. Very disappointing there, but that was basically tied to Hundley's inefficiency. Not really Adams not doing well, considering he had 42 yards out of the 84 passing yards that Hundley had. That's more on Hundley than it is on Adams, at least for me. Marquise Lee, 21.2 fantasy points. Again, 10 targets for him in a game where he's not guarded by Patrick Peterson. 21.2 fantasy points. Josh Reynolds busted out, 2.6 points. Got 6 targets, only caught 2 of them for 6 yards. A little bit disappointing there for him. Jared Cook was your bust of the week. We talked about how he was a very good play on FanDuel because of the price, but I was probably not going to be heavy on him on DraftKings and Cash because they priced him up way too much. He still got his 5 targets, was very inefficient on him, only caught 1 for 9 yards and no touchdowns, 1.9 fantasy points. Hunter Henry, 15.1, did just fine. The Chargers, if you double stacked Keenan Allen, Henry, and Rivers, you had yourself a pretty solid start to a lineup there. 7 catches on 9 targets, 81 yards, no touchdowns. Austin Hooper, 5.1 points, 3 catches on 4 targets for 21 yards. We talked about on the Anti-Tinkercast how tight end was a complete mess this week. If you played Henry, you did great. If you played Kelsey, you did great. The other guys were just kind of all over the place, and it was really the last position that I wanted to fill in this week. Jacksonville Jaguars, if you paid up for the floor, you definitely got there. 12 fantasy points, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks, allowed 10 points. And the Raiders defense picking on the Giants' woeful offense gave us 8 points, 2 fumbles, 3 sacks, and 17 points allowed. So Best Buys did not do that bad this week. Let's see how my lineups did this week. Here's the King of the Beach final. Ended the day with in 23rd place, right in the middle of the pack. A little bit disappointing considering what I could have had and what I came off of. Originally in this spot where Carlos Hyde is, this was Jamal Williams. I came off of him as Aaron Jones was active. Here, I had to come down a little bit in salary. I had McCown all week, but I had naked McCown because I didn't really feel like I need to pair him with any of his pass catchers because he kind of spreads the ball around a little bit. Even though Robbie Anderson got a bunch of touchdowns over the last 6 weeks, 5 straight games with a touchdown, I didn't feel the need that I had to pair McCown. So I was going naked McCown. I went for the correlation here with Hundley to Adams. Obviously, both of them busted out. Adams very highly owned in that final. I was the only person in the final with Keenan Allen. That shocked me a little bit. DeAndre Hopkins, 54% owned in that final. Austin Hooper, I was also the only person on him. Had to come down after going up to Hyde, and I should have just pivoted here from Jamal Williams to Drake, which would have been a smash, which is what I did in my secondary lineup to try and keep it simple. I had, and I posted the picture of this yesterday on Twitter, I had McCown, I had Drake, I had Theo Riddick, who was the X Factor we talked about on the Anti-Tinkercast. Michael Thomas just kind of fit, 18 points, and the Ravens defense, I pivoted off of the Raiders to go to the Ravens. I felt that they possibly had a little bit of a better chance at scoring a touchdown than the Raiders, who have not been a really good defense all year, although they had a cherry matchup. We can take a look at the Edge 4-man. Won for the first time by one of the listeners, Herb Bilton. Same lineup here, right? But you can see the difference in the ownerships, right? Davante Adams, I was the only one here, even though he was pretty highly owned in the final. Keenan Allen, again, I was the only one here. Michael Thomas, the only one here. Brett Hundley, 75% owned. Brett Hundley here, Brett Hundley here. You can see who was paying attention to having the lines move, right? Obviously, Herbilton didn't have him. He went with Case Keenum. Keenum did just fine. Considering his salary, I think he was $6K, right? So you need 18 points from him. He got you to 16.5. Congratulations to Herbilton for bringing this down, or for taking this down. Although I'm still kind of left with what could have been here with that, with the McCown, either Jamal Williams or Drake lineup with these same sort of guys, right? I still would have had Keenan Allen, Adams, and Hopkins at wide receiver in that lineup. Theo Riddick opened up a lot of stuff, and you do have to pay attention because when Abdullah was named out this week, Theo Riddick became the guy that I went 60% on throughout tournaments. He was like 3.4K. We know what happens when Amir Abdullah's out. He gets his, 5 catches in those games. We knew he was going to get a little bit more. He did get into the end zone. Even without that, he paid off that salary and was an absolute smash play with upside. Somebody in the chat just asked, I didn't see who it was, said, what was my thought process on Hooper? Hooper's been very active in that offense. I thought that game was going to be a little bit more high scoring than 14-9. And Hooper has a lot of usage around the goal line. I did not like tight ends at all, and I could not get up to sticking with Henry, which is who I had. I basically had Henry, McCown, Williams, came down to Riddick, and the same wide receivers that I had, and then the flex position came up a little bit. I think I had Diggs there. So I came up 700 to that, and always had the $3,100 Raiders/Ravens defense. So that was essentially my thought process moving along throughout the week. Hopefully we can do better this week. We've got the FD final in week 14. We've got the DraftKings final in week 15. It just comes down to decisions every single week. As we said, again, Best Buys did well enough. Hopefully you guys had a solid week this week, made better decisions than I did with your main lineup. Hopefully you won some GPPs as well. We'll catch up to you next week. If you're still watching this on YouTube, please click like, please click subscribe, and leave me a comment in the comment section down below so that I can know what you think. We'll catch up to you next time. Look out for the first look lineup for this week and the Friday question and answer as the week moves on. We'll catch up to you guys later. Bye, everybody.